as well. But they have George Kittle and they re-signed Charlie. They have Charlie Warner. They re-signed Ross Dwelly. Where do you put? I mean, tight end is kind of one of those. I don't know exactly, Jesse, like where tight end is on the needs. I guess some people could argue it's way high on their needs because they don't know about the future of Kittle and how long will he play, so on and so forth. Or they could argue that, man, those other guys behind Kittle are not number two tight ends, and they really tight ends a major need. Going into this draft, I'm not asking you to tell me what you think of Kuntz or Latu. Believe me, though I did see Kuntz, and to me, he seemed really skinny calves, and he just seems like he would be a guy that could get injured really easily because guys go low, and it's hard to play with leverage and run with power when you're 6'8". Very few. I've seen very few 6'8" guys. Probably the only 6'8" tight end I've ever seen that I thought was like outside of like Harold Carmichael or something going way back,
Right.
who was a receiver, was the guy from Miami, Graham, who went to the Saints.
Yeah, yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
Graham.
yeah.
Jimmy Graham was
Yep.
a legit player at 6'8". I mean, if you watched him, you would swear he was 6'5". When you watch him run, because there was
Very
nothing
fluid
leggy. Yeah,
player. Yeah.
very fluid. But let me throw tight end at you as far as we're 3 weeks in front of before the draft. Where is tight end? How important is it for you in your mind for them to get a tight end? Do you want a blocker? Do you want another receiver? Do you want and where in the draft would you invest? Is there a guy that you like as far as tight end in this draft? It's considered to be a stellar tight end class.
Yeah, it is a deep tight end class. I'm not going to force it, but if that was their first pick because that was the best player available, I wouldn't be mad at it. I would probably put tight end at 5, and this would be my order
Fifth
of
round or
importance.
okay, fifth
No,
fifth
I'm just
highest
saying
need.
5 as far as like needs. So my order of importance would go I'd go safety, I'd go outside corner, I would go edge rusher, offensive line, and then probably tight end, followed closely by quarterback and
So
potentially kicker. Like I
what's at the
think
top? What'd you put at the top?
I put
Tackle or
safety,
safety?
safety.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though you got Gibson and you got Hafanga, you think
They need a
Gibson's not a
third guy,
starter?
man.
Yeah,
They
they
need
do.
a third guy. There's just nobody there that I trust behind them. And Gibson had a fantastic year last year, but he's 33 years old. That was arguably the best year of his career. That doesn't usually happen. So I think to trust that again would be a little bit of negligence on their part if they don't try to at least beef up that room. And then also, if one of those guys goes down, who's behind him that you can really trust for a long period. So I think safety is super important and should be very high on their list. So, that would be it for me. I'd go safety, outside corner, edge rusher, offensive line, tight end, quarterback, kicker. Like that would probably be my order I would go.
I'm going. Um, I'm always about beating up the quarterback, so
Hmm.
I'd go edge rusher like as my number one need.
Yeah.
Then I would go slot corner
Oh, really?
over
Okay.
safety. So slot corner, I think is in today's NFL, that slot corner is just like so freaking valuable, and they're right in the middle of the field. They're right in the middle of the action. If you have a bad one, it seems like a really tough position to play. They're on the field 7 out of every 10 plays. They're almost more important than your third best linebacker. I would say defensive end, edge rusher, being one, and then slot corner being two. But I might have tight end right there, 3 or 4, because I just think that if George Kittle is a culture player for the Niners, when you're watching the Niners if he's on the field. Like not everybody, you can't say that about everybody, but you can definitely there's a different vibe on the field when George is out there. The Niners are more physical, they have more swagger, they're better in the run game because he can move people in the run game. They're more dangerous in the middle of the field late in the down because George is always lurking. He's a receiver. I don't want to be super negative on Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly, but I think Warner's a kind of a try-hard blocker. I think Dwelly is a special teamer, um, and I don't really love him on from scrimmage. So I think tight end would be really close on the needs because I just think that if George goes down, I mean, who's there? Who would they go with? And then, I mean, if you go with Warner, can you rely on him to catch a key pass on third down? If you went with Dwelly, could you rely on him to pass block? I don't know. To me, I think having a second big time tight end is even though you have Kittle there, and I don't know about his contract status, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I think that having another good tight end, I just kind of think that Kittle's a 1, Dwelly's a 3, Warner's a 3. I'd like to see either another 1, or a 2
Yeah.
at tight end. And to me, that I like Danny Gray. I like Juwan Jennings. Like if they had lost an Ayuk or a Debo for a week or two, okay. I mean, if you lose McCaffrey, I like Elijah Mitchell. I like J.P. Mason. I mean, heck, if you lose a Brock Purdy or a Trey Lance, I like the other guy. But if you lose George Kittle, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd be worried. I'd be worried for their pass protection. Be worried for their run blocking ability. I just think that they need another dude. They need another guy at that position who can, because another thing I'd love to see, especially if Brock is the guy, and it sounds like in the minds of Kyle and John, at least for the moment, he may be. Look at the way Brock utilizes the tight end. I mean, having
Mhm.
another tough, sticky-fingered, middle of the field guy that he could lean on. I wouldn't mind seeing a lot more two tight end sets, especially if you could find somebody who was like Kittle, who's like, man, he gives you something as a receiver, but he also moves people in the run game. And I haven't studied their blocking enough to know which of these tight ends can really move people. But I'd be looking for the guy who could move people in the run game and catch the ball. And if that guy exists, and I'm sure he probably does, um, I'd like to see that guy here. That's just my thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I definitely could find use for it. Now, you talked about nickel corner. You don't like. I actually feel decent there between Womack and Oliver. It's outside corner for me that I struggle with. I mean, I just
You don't
Ambry
like
Thomas.
Lenore? Well, yeah, Thomas. I think they could. In my mind, Jesse, they need two edge rushers and two corners.
Mm,
Like
that's fair.
and one's going to be a slot corner, one's going to be an outside corner. But I just think that slot corner, like the guy that like Tony Pauline, who's a buddy of mine who scouts in the NFL and now some kind of a scout slash media guy, has a podcast. Really, really good. There's two guys I would for all you guys getting ready for the draft saying, who do I listen to? What do I listen to? Rob Rang's really good. Rick Spielman, who used to be the GM of the Vikings, does like some stuff, videos on guys now. Really, really good. And Tony Pauline. He's got a podcast and you can listen to it. And I forget who the other guy is on there
I
with him.
think Pauline and Crocker used to do some things together for Locked On for the draft.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
that's Croc is good too. I was just on with him last week. But yeah, Pauline is legit. And one of the reports he had this week that I read was that the 49ers are showing a lot of interest in Catrell Clark, who is the Louisville slot corner, who they're
Yeah.
projecting to go early fourth round, which is almost perfect because the Niners have 3 picks right there at the compensatory picks at the end of round 3 that are almost like fourth round picks. If Catrell Clark is on the board at the end of the third round when they get to 99, 101, 102, somewhere in there, that's definitely one of my 3 picks. I love Catrell Clark, and I'm not just because Tony loves him. I went and watched him after, and every all the plays that I'm watching. I mean, this guy's mirroring guys up and down the field. He can cover on the two-way break. It seems like pretty well. Really, really athletic. Really, really productive football player, and the measurables were terrific. And to me, that's what this whole draft is about. Go find all your productive college football players because it's not underwear Olympics. It's not a track meet. It's a football
Yeah.
game, right? So go
Yeah.
find the best football players, and then of those football players, go find out which of them have the NFL athleticism and upside. The 38-inch vertical and the 4.3 speed, and they bench 225. Find me the strong, fast guys who have the NFL bodies, but then played big time college football and were productive. There's a lot of guys who are big time bodies, but they're crappy players. And that's where teams make mistakes. They fall in love with guys at the combine, and it's like, dude, start with the film, find out who the good players are of that group, then find out who are the pro athletes of that group. Anybody who's not a productive football player, in my mind, should never appear on your board. No matter how fast he runs at the combine, no matter how much weight he lifts in Indy. You know what I'm saying? To
Yeah,
me,
I
that's
think
that's the way to do it.
there was a couple of those guys last year too that they definitely had an opportunity to get. One of them I fell in love with before the draft. I think a lot of people ended up talking about him later on was Marcus Jones. I mean,
From
talk about a
Went
guy
to
who
New
had
England. Love him.
amazing film, and then speed to burn for days. And then the other one was Woolen, who ended up in Seattle. You know,
Yeah,
he definitely and he went later, but man, he had the body, he had everything, but he also was good on film. And so those guys are going to be there. It's just about isolating and finding the right ones at the right time. But they're there every single year, and it's just who can find them,
yeah.
who can weed them out the best.